Welcome back everybody, Modoc here with part 2 of our PoxNora game client tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be covering how to actually play your first game. I'm going to show you around the game interface screen and what everything means, and I'm also going to give you some basic tips and strategies to use both in campaigns and in player versus player battles. Alright, the first thing I want to show you, we're on the single player tab inside the game client. And I think we're actually going to do one of these walkthroughs, but I want to show you the options for when you do the regular campaigns. So if you want to start a beginner campaign, or any of these campaigns really, you simply just click on the campaign, and then you'll be able to set some options here. The first one is your difficulty. You can play on normal, hard, or legendary. I highly recommend playing on legendary just because even though it sounds hard, it's really not. And you get the most gold for the amount of time you spend playing the game. Now each level is going to give you a different amount of gold once you complete that that part of the campaign. So on normal you're going to cap at 75 gold, hard you're going to cap at 125 gold, and legendary you're going to cap at 175. Now how this works is the game gives you gold per minute rate depending on the level you play. And in order to get that cap, you have to play for at least 20 minutes. Most of the time, that's not too difficult to hit that 20 minutes. There's a couple scenarios that are really easy, though, so you kind of want to stall and take your time if you want to get the most gold out of your playing experience. But again, that's why I usually play Legendary, simply because it's not hard to beat, and you get the most gold, you get the most bang for your buck. All right, the next option you can choose is your battle group. Since all we have is Pandemonium, we don't have an option to choose anything else. And that's why we're going to do one of the walkthrough campaigns. You get access to another battle group. And then you can make it observable or not observable. And then once you've got those set, you simply hit Start Campaign and it'll bring up the screen there. But since we're not going to do this campaign, we're going to do a walkthrough. We'll just click on that. And then you'll notice that you can't change the difficulty or your battle group. Essentially what the walkthroughs do will give you a pre-made battle group from that faction. So since we're going to play the Cathir Forest walkthrough, it's going to give us a Cathir Forest battle group. And essentially it's always on normal. I think you'll get, once you complete this, you'll get 25 gold plus the access to use that battle group. Alright, so we're simply just going to hit Start Campaign, and I'll show you around the in-game client here. Okay, this is how the game will look once you launch the game. There's a lot of information here. So the first thing I want to cover is what everything is. Alright, first up, right up here in the corner, you're going to see what's called the Rune Dock. What this has in it is the amount of Nora you have to spend on champions and spells and relics and equipment, and then it'll have all of your revealed runes so far. The first turn you will always start off with 5 revealed runes, 5 of your 30. Okay. The next thing you'll see on the other side is what's called your cooldown dock. And anytime a champion dies, or you cast a spell, or a relic or equipment you have deployed is destroyed, it'll go on what's called cooldown. And these cooldowns can range anywhere from 5 turns for some spells all the way up to 20 or more turns for certain champions. It just really varies with the champion. Alright, the next thing is our global effects. And this is basically all the effects that are active in the game globally that will affect either both you and your opponent, or just you. So notice you've got the AI rules. Essentially, some of these AI rules are kind of screwy. It'll let them deploy anywhere on the board. Certain spells and equipment will be disallowed also. Then you have your faction bonus. So basically, we're playing Cathir Force, so we get our champions get +1 speed, and they have +1 maximum AP. And then he's playing Shattered Peaks. Anytime he deploys a champion, you'll gain 12% of its Nora cost. So that's kind of cool. Alright, the next is our avatar and shrine. Now, down in this lower right corner is basically the rune information or game information screen. Anytime you highlight a shrine or a font or even your opponent's shrine or a champion, highlight a spell, it'll tell you exactly, it'll just bring up the picture and tell you what it does. So let's look at our shrine. You can just click on your shrine, and it'll give you all its stats. So basically it'll give you its level, the picture, and then all its stats. Now, since it's a shrine, it doesn't have any damage or speed or anything like that. It's just a stationary object. But it does have hit points. And then it's got its activated abilities and its passive abilities. So let's go over what your shrine can do really quick. The first thing, and the one you'll probably use the most, is scrying. Essentially what this does is it damages your shrine by 7 health, but you get to reveal an extra rune. Every turn you're going to reveal 2 runes automatically. If you want that third one, just hit scry. Most people will scry their first few turns just in order to kind of get their battle group jump started and give themselves more options. The next button is Fortify. This essentially protects your shrine from all damage for your turn and your opponent's turn. That's what it means by 2 turns. It'll be your turn plus your opponent's turn. Essentially, it's a 1-turn shield for your shrine that will allow it not to be damaged. And the last activated ability is Transfigure. And what Transfigure does is it turns your shrine from just a building into a unit. And once you Transfigure, it'll give you 20 extra health. It'll set you where your shrine is at when you Transfigure. So let's say you have 65 health when you decide to Transfigure. It'll get 65 plus 20. Alright, and then it has its passive abilities. All shrines are immune to disease and immune to poison. They all detect within 3 spaces. So they detect any stealthed enemies. They all have shrine resistance, which means they take 50% less damage from spells and 30% less damage from abilities and attacks. And then each shrine also within their deployment zone gives a bonus to your champions. The Kathir Shrine, friendly champions gain mobility for 3 turns. Essentially that, I'll show you what mobility is here in a few minutes. Alright, so just like anything else, the rune info box will give you all, if you click on a champion or a spell, it'll give you all their stats, their Nora cost, their level, all their stats, and all their abilities, activated and passive if they have any. Alright, the next thing is on the other side of the page here, and that's our combat log and chat window. Now, when you're playing against a live person, there will be a chat tab here that you can chat with that person. The other thing that you could have on here if you've joined a guild will be a guild chat box, and that you can chat with everybody in your guild. The main thing you want to look at though here is the combat log. Now as the game progresses, this will automatically update with champs that are deployed, spells that are cast, any damage done, all that kind of thing. Anything you can think of will go in the chat window or in the combat log. And I'll kind of show you this as we go along. The next is below that, and what I call the game state window. So essentially what this is going to have is it'll have the 2 players that are playing. So you've got your name will always be in blue, your opponent's name will always be in red. And you can highlight their rank insignia to see what they're ranked and what level they are. You'll have your turn timer, your options button, which will let you resume the game, change any options, pause the game, surrender, or quit. Surrender is usually used, like I said, when you know the game's already over and you don't want to play it out till they kill your shrine. So, just going to resume. And then I'll have your turn counter and your end turn button. Essentially, when you're done with all your moves for the turn, you just hit end turn and it'll go to the next person. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's go over some grid mechanics real quick. One of the hotkeys you'll probably use quite a bit is the G button. So if you hit G once, it'll bring up your grid, and this will help you count spaces and stuff like that. If you hit it again, it'll bring up a little bit of terrain and movement info here. Essentially what this means is like anything that doesn't have a number will just cause you cost you 1 AP to move to that unit. If it's got a number, it'll cost 1 plus that number. So to move over these these water squares, it's going to cost you 2. To move over these water squares, it'll cost you 3. Okay? And then if you hit G again, it'll take everything off. The other hot button to get terrain information is N. So if you highlight a square and hit N, in the rune information box, it's going to bring up what kind of terrain it is, what height it is, and its location on the map. Okay? So that's all that is. And alright, so let's get into gameplay now that we wasted 8 minutes of our first turn. Alright, so in these walkthroughs, it's going to give you the objectives to complete as you go along. So our first objective is to deploy a champion. And this will be pretty much what you want to do very first in every game you play is deploy a champion. Now, what you're going to want to look for in your first turn is usually your champ with the highest speed. And so we've got 3, 6. Let's go ahead and scry here just to get one more option maybe. Okay, it didn't give us a champ, but it revealed another one, so that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an Avenging Angel first simply because she has flight. And that kind of will let her move a little more freely. So anytime you want to deploy a champ or a spell or a relic or an equipment, you just drag it from your rune dock onto the map. Now you notice I've got a space of white around my shrine here. Essentially I can deploy this champion anywhere in that zone, on any one of those white squares. Okay? If it's an orange square, you don't want to deploy it there, or you can't deploy it there. Now our first objective is going to be to capture this font. So we're going to put our champ as close as we can to that font. Alright, so now it says to capture the Nora font to generate more Nora per turn. The way Nora generation works is this. Each turn your shrine will generate 45 Nora, and any fonts that you control will generate 12 Nora per turn. So obviously the more fonts you control, the more Nora you're going to get every turn, the more champs and such you can deploy. And then there are champs and spells that generate Nora too, but it's usually no more than 5 a turn on those. So, but Nora generation is pretty decent in the game right now. So, all right, so we've deployed our first champ. We don't really have enough Nora for anything else, so we're just going to go ahead and end our first turn, finally. And the opponent will take their turn. All right, you'll see the little 45 that popped up above the shrine. That means we generated 45 Nora. Okay, so now we're back up to 88. And any rune that isn't grayed out, you can actually deploy that turn with the number of Nora you have. All right, so let's capture our first font since that's our next objective here. Now, when you click on a champion, a bunch of little yellow squares are going to come up. Essentially, that's your movement range. You can move to any one of those yellow squares within that area. All right. So, since we want to capture a font, the way you capture a font is simply by moving your champ into its deployment zone. So, when you click on the Nora font here, it'll show you its deployment zone. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go and move our champ up to capture that font. Okay, so now you'll see I'm within the deployment zone, and there are no enemy champs or relics in that deployment zone. So at the end of this turn, I will have captured that font or capped that font. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and end our turn, and I'll show you what it does. All right, see it turns from the wild one into our Kathir Forest one, and then you'll see when he moved out of it. He didn't capture it. Alright, so the next thing we want to look at is how to deploy a spell. So anytime, just like with champions, anytime you want to cast a spell, you just drag it on the board. Now, this game uses something called spell presence. So every shrine has a spell presence, every font deployment zone you control has a spell presence, and every champion you control has a spell presence. And the way you can see your spell presence is just by, like I said, dragging a spell onto the board. Now, we can cast this, it's just like deploying champs. You can basically cast this spell anywhere in this white zone. Okay? As long as your globe's red, you can cast it. If it turns black, you can't. Since we can't really hit his champ with this, we're not going to cast it. I just kind of wanted to show you what spell presence is. Okay. Let's see. We don't have any equipment or relics to deploy yet. Let's see if I can. Okay, and we didn't get one. All right. So our next little concept here, we're going to have to capture this font eventually, but for right now, we're just going to kind of play a little defensive. It's usually what you want to do against the AI. And then I'll show you a little trick here. It's always a very good idea when you're moving your champs, especially early game, to do what we call AP storage. Now, if we highlight our speed stat here, you'll see that this unit has a base 6 with a mod of 1, which means it gives her 7 speed, and then our maximum AP is 12. Now, how maximum AP works out is it's always going to be your speed plus 4 if you're playing a non-Cathir forest group. If you're playing a split faction or full faction Cathir forest, it's going to be your speed plus 5. So, since we have 8 here, if we want her to have maximum ATP for the next turn, we need to leave her with 5. So what we're going to do is just move her 3 spaces up here. And that'll just kind of position her for the champs that it's going to send against us. But this way, next turn, she'll get 7 AP and be at a max of 12. Like I said, it's a very good idea to start working on AP storage right from the very beginning, because in person versus person, it's very important. It just gives you a lot more options as far as double attacking your opponent's units and just giving you a lot more mobility. So like I said, early game, unless you can capture a font right away or you can kill an opponent, you really want to work on your AP storage. Alright, so now that we have another font deployment zone, we're going to deploy another unit or 2. Now, usually where you want to deploy your units is as close to your to wherever you want to go as you can. The only exception here is your ranged units. Like, so we've got our archer here. She's got a range of 4 to 7, so we can actually put her a little farther back so she's not quite on the front lines. Okay, and then we'll go and deploy a Forest Dragon 2. Now you'll notice these champs take up 1 space. They're small. This guy is a large champ, so he takes up 2. And so when you go to deploy him, you've got to have 4 open spaces to deploy him. Alright, so that's that turn. And our turn to let him go. Alright, now he's going to go ahead and capture his font. And we'll go take it from him here in a second. Alright, so you notice when he captured his, it went from the wild to the Shattered Peaks 1 there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start moving towards this font to take that font. Alright, so again, we look at our max OP is 12, so we want to leave her with 5. So we're just going to move her 2. We can move her full 7 if we want. I'm going to keep her a little farther back so she stays with the group. And then, again, he'll have a max of 12, so we'll move him up too. Alright, and we'll end our turn. He's going to deploy another champ. Now, usually, a lot of these campaigns, the AI will leave its first unit, it will either have a unit already deployed when the game starts, or its first unit will just sit in that font zone. Every other unit that it deploys will essentially, as soon as it has AP, it's going to start sending it towards your champs to attack your champs. And if you don't have any champs out, it'll send units directly towards your shrine. Alright, so basically, I'm going to move these guys up. We'll spend their 7 AP. And like I said, kind of get them in a little bit of a position. We're going to deploy one more champ, but instead of deploying it over here in our font zone, since we're going towards this font zone, we're going to deploy it in our shrine area. Again, simply because you want to deploy as close to where you're going to head as possible. All right, we'll move her up a little bit. Now, here's another thing I want to cover is kind of what's called spacing. You want to try to keep as few of your champs in group together as possible. You want to kind of have them loosely grouped together, simply because of area of effect spells. Here's a good example: brambles. So this is a 2x2. This is an area 2 effect, which means it's going to do the middle square plus any square 2 spaces away. So if you have your champs grouped like I have them grouped, all 3 of them can get hit. If I moved her one up and him one up, that essentially eliminates the ability to get more than 2 of my champs at the same time with the same spell. And the only reason he can get 2 right now is because I've got a 2x2 champ there. So you kind of want to think about spacing when you've got your units. 2 to 3 spaces away is usually a good, at least 3 spaces away is usually a good distance to keep units. That'll just simply eliminate any chance of you having all your units killed by a bunch of spells at the same time. Okay? Alright, so that's kind of spacing a little bit. Alright, he's going to deploy another champ. He's going to try, and the AI is really bad at blocking itself too, so the AI is really not effective in these games. Alright, we got our relics, so let me show you to deploy that real quick. So, relics, unlike champions, can be deployed not only in your font deployment zones, but directly next to any champ you have in play. Now, usually you won't want to. There's a few relics that you would want to deploy next to a champion, but for the most part, you'll want to put them in either your own font zones or your opponent's font zones. And actually, let me show you that, because that's kind of a cool little trick that a lot of people use. And it's a way to contest the font without using a champion. So we're going to move her up to just outside the font zone. You'll see the font deployment zone. We're going to move her up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop our relic right there on the edge of the font zone. Now what that'll do is it'll contest that font. We'll move these guys up. Again, leaving them with their maximum AP for the next turn, so that we can really do some damage to these guys once we start attacking them. But essentially what that relic will do will prevent him from getting the 12 Nora from that font. So that's a cool little trick that you can use, that pretty much everybody uses on a regular basis, is contesting fonts with relics. And that's kind of the power of relics. It's kind of cool. And then we'll go ahead and move her one up here, and he'll probably come attack us, but that's okay. Alright. And so most of these walkthroughs and campaigns, you really don't need more than 4 or 5 champions deployed. We'll go ahead and deploy one more just for the fun of it. But again, you really don't need to deploy too many champs at this point. Yeah, alright. So we'll go ahead and end our turn. So you see that went back to wild font because we have our relic in there. And he's going to attack the relic to try to get rid of it and move in. Like I said, this is why the AI is not that smart. It just kind of blindly moves in to attack things, and then it kind of attacks weird things. Alright, so let's go over our attack real quick. Now, one of the basic concepts of PoxNora is called one rounding. What you really want to try to do is kill one champion at a time. Simply because if you eliminate that champion, he can't do damage to you. Whereas if we just pinged all of these guys and they all stay alive, they can all do damage to us the next turn. So the way you can calculate whether you can one round a champion is highlight that champion and look at his health and his defense. So this guy's we'd need to do 50 points worth of damage to kill this guy. And with a 2 defense, that means he's going to reduce his damage by 2. So if we look at her, she's got a 13 damage, so she's going to do 11 damage per attack. And she's going to get 2 attacks because she has 12 AP, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So with her, we can do 22 damage. He is in range of our archer, so that's good. And because she's got 11 AP, we're going to be able to get 3 attacks off with her barrage and her attack arrow. So she's going to do 8 damage per attack, so that's 24 plus the 22 gives us 46. So he'll have 4 hit points left. And then we can finish him off with a spell. So here's how we're going to do this. There are 2 ways you can attack. You can either use one of the hotkeys, which is A. You just highlight the champ you want to use, hit A, and it'll bring up their range. Now, since her range is only 1, she can only attack these adjacent champions. Okay? Now, when you're ready to attack, you just click on the unit that you want to attack. So click on the Cyclops Mauler, and it'll attack him, and you see we did 11 damage, just like I expected, because he has a 2 defense. She has 13 damage, he has a 2 defense, which does 11. Now, you'll notice that our AP cost for our attack went from 3 to 5. This was called the attack chain. So any ability that is in the attack chain, every time you make your first attack, every ability's AP cost will go up by 2. When you make your second attack, it'll go up by an additional 3. So the other way you can attack is just click your attack button and then click the unit you want to attack. Okay? And then you'll notice your AP cost for another attack will now be 8. So that's how the attack chain works. That's really why you want to store APs, so you can get at least 2 attacks off every turn. Now with our archer, like I said, we're going to be able to get off 3 attacks because she has a cool ability called Barrage. So basically what Barrage does is it makes a basic attack, and if that attack is successful, it makes another attack for free. So we're going to hit Barrage and choose our Cyclops again. And he's going to take 16 damage from that one. Now you'll notice that we used Barrage, but our basic attack went up. That means Barrage is in the attack chain. And then you'll also notice that this ability is now grayed out. It's on what's called cooldown. So every time you highlight an ability, you'll see the activated ability, and it'll tell you whether it's activated or passive ability, and it'll tell you it's cooldown. Attacks, normal basic attacks, always just have a cooldown of 0. You can use it the next turn right away. What the 4 denotes is that it's going to take 4 turns for that ability to become available again. So at the beginning of your turn, this will go down to 3, and then 2, and then 1, and then you'll be able to use it again. So that's kind of how cooldowns work on abilities. All right, we're going to go ahead and attack him again. Alright, so he's down to 4 hit points, just like we thought it would be. Now, there are one of 2 ways we can finish him off. We can either move our dragon up there and finish him off with that, or we can do a Brambles. Or we can even do a Carnivorous Vines. If we really want to do a Carnivorous Vines, we could kill him with 4 damage. But the Brambles, if we cast that, will actually let us get both of the champions. So we're going to cast the Brambles. He's going to take 4 damage, and he's going to die. Now, every time a champion dies, it'll drop what's called the Nora Globe. And when you recover Nora Globes, you get extra Nora. That's just what they are. And then different champs will have different amounts in their Nora Globes. Okay? Alright, so now what we can do is we're going to have to move 2 spots to get this guy in range of our archer. Now we're in range, and I think, again, we have plenty to do 3 attacks. Now, this guy's a little different on damage reduction. You have to calculate your damage a little bit differently because he has what's called evasive, which means he's going to take 20% less damage after defense from any ranged attack. So, even though she has a damage of 10, and he only has a defense of 1, normally that would do 9 damage. But, because he's got the evasive, he'll take 2 less damage. So you see he only took 7. And then we're going to go ahead and attack him again. Now, you'll also notice that he has a range of 2 to 4. This is also where positioning comes into play. Now, what you want to do against a lot of ranged champs, if you're in range, is go ahead and engage them. And you'll see in the combat log that the forest dragon and the voiceless creature just became engaged. Essentially what that means is in order for him to attack, You'll notice once you highlight his attack, it'll show his attack range. It'll show his attack range up there. In order for him to attack, he's going to have to move at least one square away from the dragon in order to attack him. And when you're engaged, unless you have mobility, it'll cost you 3 AP to attack. So essentially, he's only got a 6 speed, so he's only going to be able to get one attack off on our dragon because he disengages. But we might even be able to kill him. He's got 21 left. We're going to do 20 with 2 attacks from the dragon. And that'll leave him with 1 hit point. And then here, again, we can finish him off with the vines. And he's dead. We'll go and recover the Nora Globe. And then we'll move her up a couple spots. Alright, so there's one other thing we can do if we really want to, but there's not much point in it. We could move her, we could disengage her, see it costs 3 AP to disengage. Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So basically what I'm going to do with her, instead of leaving her there to get attacked twice by him, I'm going to move her up into the font zone. And what this will do is this will capture the font zone for us, since there's no opposing champions in play. And I know for a fact that this guy is just going to move 1, 2, and not contest. He's just going to move 2 spots to attack. Now, the other thing that did is allows me, since he's got a speed of 7, he's going to have 8 AP to start on the next turn. So if I would have left my angel there, he would have been able to attack twice. Whereas now he's got to move 2 spaces, which will only leave him with 6 AP, and he'll only be able to attack once. So that's another thing you can look at with spacing. Excuse me. Alright, let's end our turn and see what he does. Alright, so we've captured our other fonts. We've completed that objective. Now our last objective is to destroy the shrine. Alright, so that's interesting. He killed the... That's interesting. Yeah, he killed our relic and then moved up. But that means he didn't attack our Avenging Angel. Okay? Now, the only bad thing about me moving her up to take that font was that now I can't attack him twice. But I think I should still be able to come pretty close to 1 round in him. We'll do 2 attacks with our archer. Alright. Alright, so he's got an interesting little defensive capability as well, and this is where damage calculation can get a little bit wonky. Alright, so you'll notice that he took 5 damage from my attack. So she's got an attack strength of 9, and he's got a defense of 2, which means he should have taken 7. However, he has what's called scale armor, which means he's going to take 25% less damage. And I think it'll always pretty much round up. So he took 2 less damage from that attack, from those attacks. So if I'm correct, since he's got a defense of 2 and a 25% reduction, I think he'll probably take 8 damage from my angel. Let's find out if I'm right. 7. So, like I said, the rounding kind of can get a little screwy with some of these. Alright, now if I want to move my dragon up and attack, I can do that. And I think we're going to go ahead and do that. Gives me just enough. And then I'll move my other 2 units up a little here, making sure they have max AP. Now, what we're going to do here is, just as a kind of defense measure, we're going to cast Evolve on him. That way it just kind of reduces the amount of damage he does. So there, it reduces his damage to 4, his speed to 3, and his defense to 1. That does a couple different things. First off, he won't really be able to hurt our units. Second, because now he only has a speed of 3, he's only going to have 6 AP, which again means he'll only be able to attack one of my units 1 time. So that's a good way to think on how to do it. Now, what we could have done is done a couple more damage to him if we would have cast that before we attacked. But in the long run, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. In a person versus person game, it might have those. So that's one thing to always keep in mind is really look at all your options before you make any moves. All right, we'll end our turn there. See what he does. He deployed a champion, and he attacked for 4. Alright, so we're going to finish him off. And we'll use our angel. And our dragon to finish him off. And he's still going to have 6 hit points, so let's use our archer here. Alright, so that takes care of him. Move the dragon up, leave him with 3 AP. Bring her over here. And move her 7 over here. Again, leaving them with the maximum AP. Now, there are 2 things we can do with our archer here. Since she's engaged to this little Moga Zealot, we can either move her all the way out, or we can use a spell called Vortex. What this will do is we'll target him, and it's just going to move him to the furthest point away from wherever he was in its owner's shrine deployment zone. So that's another kind of defensive spell you can use with Kathir Forest to kind of save AP and save your units. Alright? So, since we can't really kill him, we're not going to use her second attack. We'll just store that AP. Now, what we are going to do, though, is we're going to bramble him so that it costs him more AP to move in, and he only gets 6 speed, so 2, 4, 6, he's not going to be able to get in range to attack us. Okay? Alright, so we'll retake our font zone, he'll deploy another unit, and he'll engage that, which is fine, and he'll move there, which is fine. Alright, again, we'll do some damage calculation here. So he's got 36 hit points with 1 defense, and no other things. So she's going to do 22 with her 2 attacks. And that will leave him with 14. He's in range of this archer, so we'll go ahead and finish him off with that archer. That finishes him off, and we'll recover the Nora Globe. Alright, next thing we're going to do here, I'm going to show you to activate a non-attack ability. Alright, so he has this cool thing called Healing Breath. Again, it'll tell you its cooldown once you highlight it, and it'll tell you what it does. So we're going to cast a Healing Breath, and we'll just do it on our angel. And that'll do that. It'll take away his AP, but notice that it didn't increase the cost of our attack. That's because there are a lot of activated abilities that are non-attack abilities that aren't in the attack chain. Okay? Alright, so we'll move him up to stores AP. We're going to go ahead and move within range here and attack. And then we'll move back 1 and attack twice there. And we'll go ahead and devolve him as well. Alright, and end our turn. Oh, nice little spell. Alright, so notice that by moving my Elven Fury in, she took quite a bit of damage from those 2. Even though I devolved him and stuff, he still was able to move in. So that's kind of one thing you want to kind of watch out for. But the Elven Fury is one of those units that can take a little damage and still keep on ticking, so to speak. Alright, so let's do our damage calculation. He's only got 19 hit points left. And he has a defense of 0, which means the damage isn't going to be reduced at all. And he doesn't have any other resistances or damage reduction. So, with her, With 2 attacks, she's not going to quite be able to kill him, but we're going to go and barrage him. And I'll get him down to 1 point. And we'll finish him off with the vines. That way, I can use both my attacks from the Fury on this guy. And again, this guy has the scale armor, so he's going to take less damage than he normally would. I'm going to move her up and attack. Alright, this is another thing you want to really look before you move, because again, you want to store as much HP as possible. You notice I don't only need to move her attack range, he's just 1 space out, so we're just going to move her up 1. Alright, now we're in range. Now we're going to barrage, get off our 3 attacks here. Notice this guy's pretty resilient because he has a 3 defense. So he's reducing our damage to 6 to start off with, and then with his scale armor, it reduces it another 2. Let's move our dragon. Yeah, let's move our dragon into a position here. That way, we can attack him or the shrine. Now, since our objective is to kill the shrine, I'm going to go ahead and attack the shrine with the dragon. Since I can't really kill him with the dragon this turn anyway. I might as well get a ping on the shrine. Yeah, alright, end turn. And like I said, most of your champs aren't going to die in these walkthroughs or even in the beginner campaigns, just because the computer doesn't one round that often. Like you say, you notice last turn he attacked my Fury, this turn he attacked my Avenging Angel. Alright, so let's attack. And attack. And attack. And attack. That should come close. Finish him off with that archer. Alright, that finishes him off. We'll cover that globe. Alright, again, we're going to check her range, so I'm only 1 square away from being able to hit the shrine, so we're going to move her up and attack the shrine. At this point, we really don't have to worry about killing that guy. We're just going to kill the shrine, since that's our end game objective here. And again, we'll check her range, which means I need to go up 1 and over 1. Maybe over 2. Yeah. And you'll see when you just highlight the range, anything that's green you can hit. So we'll just do that. And just because we have a ton of Nora left, I'm going to vortex him again and make him move back into the battle range. Okay? And then we should be able to finish the shrine off this next turn with everything that we have. If I can get in position here. Alright. Oh, maybe not. Well, let's find out. Yeah, it might be next turn before I can complete it. Now, you'll notice, again, your shrine, again, is going to take 30% less damage from abilities and attacks. So even though I should be doing 9 damage, because it doesn't have a defense score, with that 30% reduction, I'm only doing 7. Which is fine, because I've got enough champs. Yeah, I'm going to be able to finish off. Alright, so once you kill the shrine, it'll blow up. Little animation, and that's the end of the game. Alright, so here's our post-game screen. You have a few buttons here. You've got your return to lobby button, your Facebook share button if you want to share it on Facebook. Right up here you get all your player information. If you won the game, your name will be in green. If you lost, it'll be in red. And here you can look at your opponent's win-loss record in both ranked and non-ranked. And then you can check their rank again if you really want to. You'll have your gold bonus reward. I said each walkthrough is going to give you 25 gold, no matter how long you take to complete it. It'll give you any rewards you got. So congratulations, we were just awarded a free Cathedral Forest battle group. It'll have your player level. Every time you play a game, you gain experience and you gain a level. And I think that caps at 99. Now, this black box here, if you decide to buy one of the avatars, this will give you all the information that your avatar gained during that game. It'll give you the amount of experience it got, how much you need for the next level, and any upgrades that it got. And then you've got your CP box. This will just detail how much CP each champ gained during the match. And then you get bonuses for doing different stuff like using the most action points or killing the shrine. You get bonus CP. And then it'll have your achievements down here that you earned playing that game. Alright, so I think I've covered everything on how to play your first game. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. The next tutorial, I'll probably show you how to go in and change your battle group up. And maybe spend a little gold so you can have some options there. So keep an eye out for that one, and enjoy playing PoxNora.